Next, or the first speaker from the workshop. So the first speaker from the workshop is David Rudolph, who is a senior researcher from DTU Wind Energy here in Denmark. Which one was it? Okay, okay, thanks, Anka and Daniela. My presentation is about setting the scene. So I won't, just a bit of a disclaimer, I won't present any research finding as such. We'll provide an overview of social acceptance research and how this has evolved over the years and where we stand at the moment and what are the critical issues and also how this actually relates to small wind projects and as well. So, and I would like to start with a little anecdote. Also maybe a little provocative note here is I attended, I think it was a Wind Denmark conference a couple of years ago, where I was asked to give a presentation on the implications of the introduction of auctions and tendering schemes on wind farms in Denmark, and more broadly and as well, what the implications are for the diversity of the developers, the developer landscape, but also on smaller and community energy projects and as well. So I came up with some thoughts there and what should be considered and so on. And then there was someone in the audience, I don't want to disclose the name, but I can say it's was a governmental organization in Denmark. And paraphrasing this response to my presentation, he said, this is a thing of the past. It's nice to had this history, but we have grown out of that. And we cannot go back to that. Why would we want to do that? So he really questioned the importance of community energy projects and small wind projects nowadays, where we apparently have grown out of that. And I'm saying that not just to provoke, but also because it's a matter of social acceptance, what this guy was saying. And when we look at social acceptance, we often see issues related to why communities like to oppose wind farms, then also why certain projects meet with local resistance. There are big issues related to environmental impacts. Then, of course, again, the grumpy neighbors that don't like wind turbines. And also from politicians saying that's a matter of not in my backyard attitudes, and this is really a threat to the energy transition, and we need to do something about it. We need to overcome that. And then also more positive notes, there is actually possibilities for communities to get some benefits out of having wind farms nearby. So just to show you some headlines, and those really is what we see often also in the news and also from politicians and policymakers, that it's all about local opposition, local resistance. And this is also what I think a lot of people associate with social acceptance and as well. But this is only a part of it. And I mean, there's no clear definition of social acceptance, and it has also been used in a more inflationary way. But this is one definition. So social acceptance should be understood as a bundle of processes of decision-making on issues concerning the promotion or the counteraction of new phenomena, new elements in the transformation of the energy system. So it's much more than just looking at what's happening locally. So it's a process and that involves very different elements. And then also coming back to this triangle. When we look at the expansion of wind energy, the role of other renewable energy technologies and new energy sources is really, it's a dynamic and a complex issue. And that's why we also need to look into the broader and the more holistic perspective on how this comes, like what are the implications of that, what are the drivers of that. And then those issues include, of course, the local level, the community issues, social political issues in terms of planning, and then also the economic issues in terms of the market. And so research looking at social acceptance in that way, based on that famous triangle, it's really trying to better understand what can be challenging, what can be controversial, what can be the positive impacts of the expansion of renewable energy facilities and certain wind farms or solar farms, and so on. And also looking to why certain stakeholders might challenge that, or why certain conditions might be hampering the expansion, or might be supporting and enabling the expansion of wind energy projects. So, okay, that's not as it's supposed to be. Also a little hinge there. That's actually also showing that the arrows would need to be along the lines of this triangle. So saying that all those different dimensions are interrelated. So we would need to really look into how the political acceptance, for example, affects the community level, and also how the economic conditions relate back to the socio-political elements, and also how they, like the market and economic conditions, would affect what's happening locally and as well. So we would need to see it in an interrelated way, basically. So, and then of course the socio-political level is really looking into why is wind energy seen as a viable source of energy? How is it considered in governmental policies, and also by the public and at large? So it really refers to like regional, international, but also local planning policies, and the support and the legislation that might advance wind energy or might hamper it. So it basically includes the rules of the game, so to speak. And then also, of course, the socio-political level or dimension really provides the fundamental conditions also for the market acceptance and the community acceptance. And then we have the market acceptance. This is really related to the economic elements. So it's also the role of investors, the role of financiers, the role of consumers in bringing wind energy forward. So this is also really embedded in this green growth imperative, basically, so that the premise is that we, in order to expand energy, we need to create profits in order to make it profitable, and in order to allow for economic growth. And so this is really heavily influenced by the support system, and as well, or has been heavily influenced by the support system. But it also looks into wider effects like the supply chain behind it and jobs created for that, and then also maybe the economic effects around the area where wind farms are being built, like in terms of the local value chain, or maybe the spread of community benefit payments and so on. So that would all fall under and be related to the market acceptance element. Yeah, and then of course we have this element of community acceptance, which relates to the local level when wind farms are being deployed locally, and what are the responses and the reactions and the contestations regarding that. And here we have to say this kind of focus has changed a lot over time. And we can see that it has started out maybe in the end of 80s, 90s, with a different understanding of acceptance, what we have now. So it's been going through an evolution. So, and also this evolution has affected the object of research and the subject of research, and also how research has been done and the drivers of that, and also the context and the wider implications of that research. So early on, there was a more normative approach looking into opposition. Why do people oppose wind farm projects nearby? And why do certain people oppose wind farms and others not? And what can be done about it? So the idea was really to come up with solutions to overcome the opposition. And this is really anchored in this understanding that local people are deviant. They might not know what's going on. They might not know about the value of wind energy contributing to climate change and tackling climate change and so on. And so this is really the idea to overcome this understanding that people might be like wrong in the first place. And then this has then changed to a second wave of research, which could be called criticism. And here it was really understanding why people act the way they do. So to understand the local responses, that could be really happy acceptance or really outright opposition. And then also this wave has understood this is kind of this famous not in my backyard understanding that often is still used by policymakers and politicians in order to point at certain people and point at the issue that needs to be overcome is not really useful, and it's short-sighted and really narrow. So that's why research came up with this understanding, okay, we need to look into what is it that creates certain responses to wind energy development. So we would need to understand how people react to wind farms, why they do so, and provide improvements. This has led to a wealth of research looking into different elements, what shapes people's responses to wind farms. Like, is it trust in the developer? Is it trust in the planning process? Is it their attachment to certain places where they live and how this is affected by a wind farm? How does the planning process and their engagement in the process affect their opinion about wind farm? And also, what is it maybe, do they benefit from the wind farm or don't they benefit from wind farm? And this might also kind of contribute to their response to wind farms. And then it has moved on to a critical approach, and this is where we are at the moment, because the first two phases or dimensions or waves have actually really still focused on the local level as the problematic element. And here, the critical approach rather scrutinizes contestations. So here we look more into the socio-political context and the political economic context and the economic system and the power relations inherent in that, and how this actually shapes contestations over wind farm projects. So it questions what is done by deploying wind farms, by farming wind farms, how it's done, by whom, who are the drivers, for whom, and who is the ones who is benefiting from that process, and who might be challenged and losing out from that process. So it's really like a relational dialectic understanding of how the different dimensions come together in order to, of course, show another way. So that was the short excursion into history. And what can we learn from that 20 years of social acceptance research? So acceptance is really, the term itself is really like an ambiguous concept, but still use it because it tends to one-sidedly problematize the social and the local level. So, but on the other hand, social acceptance is also not so unuseful because it captures a key aspect of the energy transition and as well in the energy society relationship. And then, of course, as we can see, acceptance becomes a more prevalent issue in certain areas. And it kind of shows that there's a different relationship and different dynamics between communities and wind turbines. And they are also context specific, as research has shown. And then also, as I said, this concept resonates strongly with certain actors, especially when you think about politicians and policymakers. They are really fast saying, okay, this is an issue of social acceptance. And then what we also see is the main concerns over wind energy vary from country to country, but we often see that it's related to environmental and visual issues that are often the most important issues. Then when we look into the contestations over the siting of wind farms, we often see it's actually resistance against the specific project, but the issues that are debated are more general. And they go around more kind of overall topics. So this disjuncture between doing something good for or provide benefits for global warming and so on, and then perceive these benefits locally. And then also when it comes to the deployment of wind farms, it's about the distribution of costs and benefits locally. And then what we often see is that the concerns that people raise are not necessarily related to the measurable impact. It's more the values they have, how they experience certain changes and impact, how the trust plays out, how the communication plays out in the planning process, and also the meanings that they attach to the landscape and the place. And then also it's really about the perceived impacts of that. And then financial participation of communities or neighbors in wind farm projects can work, but it's not a silver bullet. And it's really important to understand that context matters. And it's also about procedural justice and distributional justice as the two key elements that always seem to shine through in contestation. Then you might wonder, what does it tell us for small wind? So moving forward, going from large-scale wind farms to wind turbines in urban areas or industrial areas and household wind turbines. So this is just a bit of food for thought. So contestations really over small wind turbines, coming back to what we have learned from social acceptance research, is first the community level is, I would say, really the concerns about impacts and distribution of benefits. So there still could be issues related to the visual, sound, vibrations of the wind turbines. Then maybe the landscape fit, depending on where it's placed, could affect property values, what we often hear, but there's been no kind of clear impact on that or measurable impact. And then also the changes to place. And so here's again the question: who is benefiting from small wind and how? And how does it relate to cost savings, energy independence of the household, energy security, maybe, affordances, who is able to afford small wind turbines, who is not, who is benefiting from that, who is not, who has access to land to build small or medium-sized wind farms, how does it affect the community cohesion and neighbor relations as well? So when you say, okay, I would like to build a small wind turbine in my garden or near my house, then your neighbor might think, okay, why is he doing that? Now he's going to earn a lot of money with that, which might not be true. And so now he gets a lot of support for that, and he saves energy and so on. But the neighbors might think it doesn't look nice, and I have to cope with kind of the visual impact there. Could be an issue there. Then socio-political element, mainly related to planning-related and legislative challenges. So what are the local requirements in terms of setback distance to the houses? Could be legal obstacles, could be different approval and permitting procedures that hamper the uptake of small wind turbines. You know, like in Denmark, you have to also engage your neighbors in the process. So really, who has a say in the process? Who's involved in the process, by whom and when, and who makes the decision at the end? What constraints are imposed in terms of, as I said, visual and noise rules, and how they are addressed and how, which could also affect, of course, the overall acceptance and contestations. And then the last element is also related to economic issues. Here it's coming back to the support system, which has changed over years. So now there are no subsidies anymore for small wind, but there could be costs related to the certification. And then it's all about economy of scale. And Tony actually said there's a kind of you phrased it like that yesterday, there's a fight going on between small and large wind. So because now there's a lot of focus on economy of scale when it comes to the expansion of wind energy. And then also, is there income from the produced electricity? Can you sell it to the grid? Can you earn by that? Or is it only possible to use that for your own consumption? And then also other economic issues is, of course, the costs related to installation and O&M. So there are different elements that also could support and maybe impede or hamper the uptake of small wind, which also relates to social acceptance as a process, not just as an individual stakeholders that might think it's a nice thing or not. So yeah, and I hope that will also provide some food for thought for later throughout the day. So it was a short run through my slides to catch up with the timing a little bit. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any question? Yeah, okay. Tony will also be here now.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, just a moment that I find you. Yeah, but go ahead with the question you want. So, who had a question? We have Irina, and then there was someone else.
Sven Ruin here. I also have a question.
Hi.
I can go and take it.
Sven, go ahead.
Who's first?
Yeah, you go first, Sven.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering if you in Denmark see any, what could I call it, more general questioning of wind energy and renewable energy affecting the public acceptance, because that is what I see in Sweden. Many of the issues you brought up, that is what I saw in Sweden maybe 20 years ago. But what I see more and more here is people questioning the whole concept of wind energy and renewable energy, saying that it's you know, causing so many problems in the grid, the integration costs are so high, and it's not really doing any use at all. And our trade associations here have not really addressed the problem, so I think it's quite widespread here. But maybe you have some thoughts on that, or can say what if it's different in Denmark.
No, I think the overall trend is probably similar to Sweden. What you I think the overall trend that you just explained seems to be similar in Denmark, but we also have to consider really the historical developments where wind energy has really started small and was embedded in communities and the local economy, where people had ownership of wind energy, and this has then changed with utilities coming in, and then the large commercial players with also the technological development, so they were taking over projects, and then also the wind farm projects got more and more detached from the local level, and as well, this is also where maybe more people not opposed, but maybe questioned the whole idea of how wind farms are being developed. And then also now, in order to make more space, in order to meet the 2030 goals, the Danish government has just come up with new ideas to put more money into the municipalities and to pay more money to the neighbors for them in order to open up more space for new wind farm projects. So this is the approach. So the overall trend is maybe the same, but maybe the rationales are a little bit different.
Thank you. Irina?
Hi, hello. Thank you for the presentation. And in the presentation, you mentioned the fight between large and small winds. But I was wondering, shall we think about this as a fight, and if small and large-scale wind turbines belong to the same market, or these are two different markets and targeted to different audiences?
This is really, really good point. I mean, the fight was not my term. I was picking it up from someone else yesterday who mentioned that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I also think maybe you shouldn't see it as a fight. I mean, there should be space for both. But as we see it at the moment, the trend is going towards larger turbines all the time. So it's really about what sort of space we need for small wind turbines as well, so that they can also thrive.
If I can add, I think that if we frame it as a fight, then it creates this tension. But I think if we present this as two different markets, maybe it creates additional space for accepting something new.
Yes. Yeah. Totally agree with that. Yeah.
Any more questions? No, there will be more discussions in the meeting room afterwards.
Yeah.